Do you like realistic graphics? High-resolution models letting you carefully examine every pore on a character's naked feet? Do you yearn for graphics so good you need to generate frames to even get stable 30 FPS despite having the most high-end graphics card? Yeah, sorry kid, not today. Skald Against the Black Priory is a game about cosmic horror making your human life pathetic and meaningless. So, just like having a job. As you can tell from looking at it, it's a retro-style game. And I don't mean the types of game you get in TikTok compilations of old RPGs, like Fallout New Vegas. I'm talking about old games, like Ultima 4 and 5, which were a clear and distinct inspiration for Skald. But, if you ask me, not that you ever will, games of that era really lacked in the narrative department. With entire plots boiling down to good guys going on a quest, defeating big evil guy by the end of it, and everyone living happily ever after. Until you need another installment in the series, after which yet another big evil guy rises to power. Because heroes never bother to change the underlying systemic problems of the society that creates big evil guys in the first place. Like capitalism and colonialism. In this essay moving on. Stories being lackluster is not a bad thing, especially for the games of old. It was an early era of discovering what video games even are, and creative or unorthodox stories weren't the main focus back then. Sadly, if you wanted a game that looks like that, but with a story revolving around, I don't know, eldritch horrors and your insignificance in the events of cosmic magnitude, for example, you would be hard-pressed to find anything like that to run on your Amiga system. But that's what Skald is here for. Welcome to our fantasy world, where you're supposed to save the day, but not for that guy. He and his wife are dead, and you directly caused it. The story of Skald is simultaneously alarming and depressing. It's a tale of humanity doing its best to survive in a world that is becoming undone with every passing hour. Rapid descent into insanity and madness will be the main themes here. And Skald doesn't pull its punches before throwing you into the middle of it. So don't be fooled by it looking like nostalgia bait appealing to those people who crumble to dust after realizing it's been 40 years since Ultima 4 came out. It certainly looks the part, but the story takes it in a whole new, even alien, direction. Oh hey, so that's the Black Priory. Before you even start a new game, you are presented with the ability to customize how it will look. Beyond basic accessibility options like making a font bigger or choosing its color and background, which are always welcome, you get to choose a CRT filter. CRT stands for Cathode Ray Tube, which is a vacuum tube containing one or more electron... Wait, who the fuck cares? Here's a picture without CRT filter, and here's the same thing with the filter on. You probably saw a similar bunch of pictures floating around showing you how old pixel games weren't made for modern non-CRT monitors. People especially love to glaze Castlevania Symphony of the Night in those, because of course they do. And maybe you are one of those fucking dorks saying that people emulating old games on modern hardware without the filter on are uneducated swine, because it's not how the game was supposed to look and it takes away from artistic intentions and yada yada yada. Well, rejoice, you get to assert your dominance over them by playing through the entire game with the CRT filter on. There are many options to choose from, you can even simulate being poor again. YouTube compression will probably destroy a lot of it, but it does enhance a lot of visuals in the game, blending stuff together beautifully. Here's a bunch of other pictures with different filters on and off. It just looks great. The difference is noticeable and it's clear that all art was made with the filter in mind. Sadly for you, I'm also one of those annoying cunts who like to play with CRT filter on, so you'll have to watch the rest of the review looking like that. After choosing which type of filter will abuse your old eyes for the rest of the game, you are supposed to make your character. But maybe we should dig a bit deeper into the visuals first. The inspiration for graphics doesn't stop at CRT filter options. Developers went above and beyond with the rest of the visuals as well. As you can clearly see, visuals look exactly how you would remember them from older games. Much better than they actually were. Amount of thought that went into them is astounding. Everything is meticulously crafted, you will never get a generic interface window like in modern games. Wasted space where the rest of your party portraits will go, vignettes around the edge of the screen, dialogue box imitating a piece of paper, hell, they even start each sentence with a fancy letter. Not to mention beautiful, if rather alarming, artworks for important story beats. I cannot overstate how greatly everything works together as a result of a lot of very deliberate choices blending together visuals and the mechanics of the game. It may seem like a very minute detail to have those 5 empty slots for future portraits, but it's not. Developers had to decide at some point that the game is going to be played with a party of 6 and not a single character more. You cannot have an extra character introduced to the party, and if you do, you need to write a justification for them to leave your party later on. Artistic decisions like that cascade through the entire development process, introducing limitations for the rest of the team. But all of those decisions resulted in a beautiful, coherent piece of media that nails its aesthetic perfectly. All of that brought together manages to easily evoke a feeling of a grand adventure you are about to embark on. And it's supported through world building as well. Since the game have devlogs, you can check for yourself how exactly the world of Skald came to be. And from what I managed to gather through reading all of them, the main developer used a very rare world building technique called thinking really fucking hard. Even when the game itself looked like this, the history of the world and the main points of conflict for the story were already figured out. And this makes the world feel so much more alive. It's something I personally love in games, when they make you feel like the world exists outside of what you are directly shown. Which Skald manages perfectly. You never directly engage with the Empire itself, a giant Rome-like country spanning the entire continent and the last 3000 years of history. But its lingering presence in the world is very clear. Even timekeeping is based on an event that's integral to the foundation of the Empire. And even the magic itself is thought out in a way that makes sense. I kid you not, the developer himself used following words: socio-economic-political implications of magic's existence. And even discussed how a simple create water spell would affect early agrarian civilization. This is insane levels of geeking out about the most basic things, and I wish to encounter more of those in games. But, as I already mentioned, the writing of the game is a love letter to something completely different. You could call the adventure you're about to embark on grand, but it doesn't end the way you thought it would, unless you're psychotic or something. You start with a premise so generic it could be an adventure from a lazy dungeon master who didn't prepare for the session. A rich noble asks you to find his lost daughter. You have spent some time growing up with her when your father was serving under that noble, so you are a perfect candidate. Your mercenary background is fitting in case she needs saving from kidnappers, and you know her well enough to persuade her to come back, if not. Yet, after you get through the tutorial set on a ship bound to a faraway archipelago, the game lets you know that the usual optimism and rainbow-like storytelling of the fantasy genre is not what it's going for. First, your ship gets destroyed by a very angry giant squid, then, in no particular order, you encounter an insane old witch taking care of an abomination which is slowly consuming her, a lunatic finishing off any survivors who are still breathing after a shipwreck, a sentient whale trying to corrupt your mind with visions of an empire of worms and your world overtaken by aliens, a telescope showing you 7 eyes in space gazing back at you, and a couple getting sacrificed to sea monsters by locals. Welcome to our resort, we have 4.9 rating on Booking. But before all of that happens, you need to create your character. And there's a lot of stuff to fill out. You start by customizing the game's difficulty, don't worry, you can change it at any moment during playthrough, which gives you a lot of freedom. Skald lets you customize all the annoying things that plague the RPG genre. Like carry weight, random encounters, difficulty of almost everything from chance to hit to dice rolls and dialogues, and it even lets you stab your team with Ozempic, making sure they never go hungry. As a rapidly aging old man, I appreciate being allowed to disable all the shit I don't like. Thank you very much. I do wish more studios realized that people may not want to interact with every shit mechanic that they came up with. Character creation itself, just like in other RPG games, is confusing as fuck. Not because the mechanics aren't explained, they are, or because you can see your class progression, you can, but because you have absolutely no idea what the game is even about. Which, as much as I love RPGs, is one of the dumbest staples of the genre. And that shit is like a fucking plague that annoys only me and absolutely no one else I know. You start playing a popular RPG, a game every friend tells you is a 10 out of 10 game, and yeah, it is. But you start the game by making a character, and you can't even see the class progression beforehand. I don't know about you, but I do not enjoy the idea of spending entire game with a character that sucks ass because I was forced to choose everything about it in a vacuum without even playing the damn game. I'm not even asking you to put a sexy mummy into the game, and to write a handy-dandy lore justification as to why he's running around with a polycule of asylum patients. Just let me do it, through a menu or something. Anyway, here is a list of instructions on how you can reroll your character using the console that opens every time you press tab. And if you don't want to reroll your character when you realize that you should have gone with Ranger or Magus class, the difficulty options come in handy to save you from an awful build you made unknowingly. Plus, it's a party-based game, so the rest of the party can carry your loser ass all the way to the endgame, while you will stay in the back and spam defense each turn because you hit like a paper towel. If not for the fact that you have to figure out your build from the get-go, it's a nice character creator screen. You get many classes and backgrounds to choose from, and in a true classic RPG fashion, they come with a lot of flavor text, slowly immersing you in the world and letting you fill in the blanks of your background story. Now that your heroic avatar is finished, you get into the game proper and embark on the worst quest of your life. With your ship gun and local kraken hunting down any ships trying to approach the islands, you are stranded for the foreseeable future. Plus, you lost the entire mercenary squad you hired to help you, short of Roland, who is just too stubborn to die. Even if you at that point were to very logically decide to abandon the quest and fuck off from the islands, your best bet at finding a boat would be going to the city, which doubles as the main trading hub for the entire archipelago. But after you rest a little and gather a few survivors to join your party, you meet the locals. In the face of literal locals, most of whom are ex-fishermen who are clearly not right in the head because they attack you on sight, and colorful local fauna ranging from crabs the size of a horse to gigantic leeches sucking you off. I'm sorry, I don't know why I worded it like that. Local wildlife and local fisher life trying to kill you has to be a sign that something is not right on the islands. Because despite what my experience of growing up in Russia tells me, people usually do not attack you on sight. That suspicion is confirmed by the first peaceful local you meet. Despite how grim the islands look now, with human sacrifices and a side serving of giant wolves trying to kill you, things weren't always like that. From what Lightkeeper tells you and the clues you gather along the way, it seems like the insanity started a few months ago. The lights in the sky changed first. And you aren't imagining things in that telescope scene. Lightkeeper sees those eyes too. And with the skies changed, animals started to change too, warping into monsters and going mad, trying to kill and consume everyone in the vicinity. Making hamsters evil wasn't enough for the seven-eyed star in the sky, so people have begun going insane as well. Culminating in the city of Horin, the one you are going to, falling into madness just 2 days ago. With Lightkeeper telling you that he heard screams even from all the way across the bay. Now that the entire island has turned into a war zone, you have to be on your toes and ready to fight at any moment. Fighting in Skald follows the simple and well-known progression curve of starting out pretty easy and growing in complexity as you advance throughout the game. What starts as an exchange of blows and simple spells, occasionally flanking your enemy to backstab them, ends up with arcane magic so powerful, your allies are just as much in danger as your enemies. And even heroes of simpler classes, like Roland, start chaining together multiple kills in a row. Otherwise, it's a turn-based game, you know how those work. And if you don't, first of all, do not interact with the guy named Destiny, he's a predator. And secondly, the game is very thorough in teaching you how to fight, having tutorials for every mechanic you encounter. It's one of those small things Skald does differently from games that inspired it, and it's a welcome change. I'm not going to go into details because it's truly not hard to get a grasp of things, but do not neglect pressing the right mouse button on your enemies to see their weaknesses and immunities. It's not as important right now because most of the enemies you will encounter are made of flesh and bone, and those are susceptible to the ancient technique of hitting them really fucking hard. But that knowledge will come in handy when you get to evil space tentacle enemies. Fighting itself wouldn't be as engaging if not for the mechanics surrounding it outside of battles. Because your party isn't just running around with infinite resources. You are a party of humans, very generic ones at that. You need to eat, sleep, and if you suffer any afflictions, you need to cure them. Failure to take care of your party and yourself will not only debuff your ability to fight, but also every other skill and attribute of your party members, which you will need to properly rest and heal between battles. As well as to pass dice roll checks, which vary from simply attempting to lockpick a chest, to making sure you don't go insane upon seeing the horrors in front of you. So, in general, you should avoid coughing up blood after every encounter if you plan on surviving on the islands. That connection between every other mechanic being affected by your injuries from the battle, as well as every resource down to arrows you shoot being finite, is what makes fighting in Skald gruesome and unforgiving. Because winning the fight is not enough. You can waste all the mana and arrows you have, but you will have nothing to use when you encounter the next group of enemies. But if you get injured, you might fail your next encounter even if you have all the resources at your disposal. So every battle forces you to decide if you want to tank hits from the enemies or waste precious resources to get rid of them fast. And you are making those decisions without foresight into what lies ahead, which creates a constant feeling of pressure, keeping the battles engaging all the way to the end. Well, unless you just disable it and enjoy the story instead. And what a story that is! Before getting to Horin, you spot a group of refugees who avoided the slaughter that took place there. The stories they tell are as insane as the rest of the game. Bands of reavers covered in blood, methodically going from house to house, killing elderly and kids first and dragging some citizens away while murdering others on the spot. And that's not the worst part. It's the fact that reavers aren't some external invading force. They are all fishermen, people refugees know, many of whom were friends of the families they mercilessly slaughtered. And now the city is sealed from the inside so they can do God knows what with the rest of the survivors. With no way of entering the city on your own, you opt to help refugees in the meantime. All quests in Skald start simple and even heroic in a sense, like helping refugees look for food or finding a remedy for the sick. But without fail, each quest eventually takes a turn for the worse. For food, you find animals that the owner of the farm, occupied by the refugees, hid from them. He wanted to protect his livelihood from being slaughtered for meat, which would be a sound decision if not for the fact that he saw kids starve to death with his own eyes, without saying a word about animals. After you bring them back, refugees kill him and his wife immediately without a trial. And for the remedy, you get it from a local witch, but she asks you to bring her an unborn child of lizard folk, which she boils alive. Those stories are what Skald truly excels at. It gives you a very basic and simple quest to complete. Something that would be a trash beginner quest in any other RPG, not even worth mentioning in a 20-hour-long retrospective. Followed by almost immediately crashing any notion of good ending for that quest. In every quest you will encounter, you are either merely postponing the inevitable or becoming the reason for someone's untimely demise. You start the story with a vague notion that you will go to the island, save the damsel in distress and skedaddle back to the mainland. But the more you play, the deeper you go into that black hole of madness. By the end of the game, even your own survival starts to look unlikely, because after everything you saw and everything you went through to stop the oncoming disaster of a galactic magnitude, would you truly want to live? You and your team will go through insane stuff. I can't even show you half of the endgame pictures out of the fear of demonetization. Not a single one of your team will live unscathed. After you help the refugees, you find a secret entrance to the city. A small group could venture inside and find out what happened. That task will fall on your shoulders once again. Inside the city, you find that reavers have stopped the slaughter and are currently locked in a stalemate between 3 infighting groups, each claiming that they are the chosen ones and should enter the castle to help the rest of the cultists continue enacting some grand design. Whatever that grand design is, there is no way it's a good thing. Just ask those guys. I don't think the grand design involves opening a McDonald's. So you speedrun the game of Fuck, Marry, Kill by choosing kill for all group leaders, assault the Reavers headquarters, and finally meet with Embla, the girl you were looking for all that time, but that's spoiler territory. And like full disclosure here, while I'm putting a spoiler warning, I'm not sure I grasped the whole story even after I did a deep dive into the game's Discord server and devlogs. But I think it's by design. Since later in the game you get to see events of cosmic scale unfold from a human perspective, Skald goes out of its way to avoid giving you a concrete answer as to what exactly happened, because you, a mere human, aren't meant to comprehend cosmic events in their entirety. Which gives me a free pass on being an idiot and not understanding the story either. To avoid story spoilers, skip to here. Okay, we're skipping most of the quests since they're actually pointless, everyone will fucking die anyways. And none of you are here to listen to me recapping the entire plot of the game, I have longer videos for that. Let's do a quick refresher on the story and discuss the meat of it. Upon meeting Embla, you realize pretty fast that she's actually not a damsel in distress. More so, she was expecting you to come and help her on her own quest, which she tries to explain in detail, but it's rapidly approaching the territory of incomprehensibility from a human perspective. Stuff she tells you is even more insane than the cruelty of the locals you just witnessed in the city. Somehow, animals and people changing is not the worst of it, the time itself is warping and changing. There are subtle clues scattered throughout the most of the game. Horin is located on the farthest island from the epicenter of whatever is causing it, so people here are the least affected. And you have seen how they are doing. But starving refugees in the camp is one of the most notable examples. Slaughter in Horin, according to the Lightkeeper, took place 2 days ago. Yet when you arrive at the camp, there are already reports of young and elderly dying from starvation, which is just way too fast. The group of reavers you encounter when entering the city is another clue. You meet them twice. This is them when you meet them for the first time. And this is them after you encounter them a second time. They are decomposing in real time, which they don't even notice because to them only a day or two have passed since you first encounter them. And the closer you get to the source of time dilation, the faster the time will pass. Another problem is that seven-eyed thing in the sky that you spotted earlier. It's a dragon. That thing is not from this world, and it's waiting for an opening to get inside and kill everyone. But what it really wants is to consume something that lies in the epicenter of all the time dilations. Embla wrongly assumes it's a corpse of one of the Magus emperors, a human mage able to cast miraculous spells that can turn deserts into jungles and stupid people into smart ones. And it lies, you guessed it, in a place called Black Priory. When you get to the Priory and come across the sarcophagus of the emperor, you seemingly find absolutely nothing inside it. Looking closer, however, you find what's actually causing all the disruptions. A whole spaceship lying under the Priory, which has been assaulted by the forces of a seven-eyed dragon trying to get in. You fight back and, after getting into the ship, lose consciousness and dream of a blue orb surrounded by a shimmering veil with a small wound in it. Upon entering the ship, your entire party goes insane in an instant, each suffering the worst fate imaginable, failing to comprehend what's happening. The only two semi-sane people are you and Embla. But not for long. Now that you are in the epicenter, time is moving at an insane speed. During the final dialogue with Embla, she ages years between each sentence. And all of that takes place with you two at the feet of a god, a giant being called Navigator. In the last act of insanity, Embla gets into a strange chamber beneath it, which devours her life essence and fills Navigator with it, awakening the god in the process. End credits show spaceship flying away from the planet, destroying the entire archipelago in the process. Whatever was hunting the Navigator failed in its quest thanks to you. But the price of saving that cosmic being is your life and the lives of everyone you encountered so far. Every heroic act you did was entirely pointless. You may have eased someone's suffering, but ultimately they are all dead. Which is where the story told through the mortal eyes of your character ends. But what actually happened? Skald keeps its meta-narrative as vague as possible, but there are just enough clues to have a theory on what's going on with that whole plot. Those clues are scattered throughout the game, and even when you find them, your character tries to explain those phenomena through the concepts that he or she understands, making it harder to unpack, but I will attempt it anyway. Plus, among the devlogs, there's in-lore letter recounting visions of an oracle, which makes it much easier to figure out. Okay, so, the game has magic in it, but that magic isn't just coming from nowhere. That vision you had of a blue planet surrounded by a green field was a vision of your homeworld Varda surrounded by reticulum. From the in-game description, reticulum is defined as a field of arcane energy that surrounds the planet. Every time someone on the planet casts a spell, they tap into that arcane field to perform magic. But in order to do so, you need to harness enough reticulum in your body, and reticulum is highly destructive to it, with one of the most common side effects being rapidly aging. If you want to perform powerful magic, you need to have a lot of reticulum in your body, and the Empire is built on the magical miracles of grand scale. Due to that fact, every Emperor is also a mage infested with insane amounts of reticulum, which they use to perform miracles and to keep themselves alive, being more akin to a lich than a human being. In Skald, even after a mage dies, the reticulum gathered inside his or her body stays. Now just remember that. The first emperor, Gallian, is believed to have ascended at the end of his life, not actually dying but becoming one with reticulum. His body and the bodies of a few other first emperors are unaccounted for in the imperial archives. Why do I say unaccounted? Because at some point, after realizing that a dead mage acts as a battery full of magic, the empire started to bury its emperors properly, sealing their bodies in tombs so that the reticulum, still retained in the body, doesn't go anywhere. That was one of the worst fucking ideas they could have come up with. When you start the game, the Empire is already slowly failing. During the lore dump Embla performed at you without consent, she mentions that Emperors of the current age are but a shadow of the Emperors of old. I believe that reticulum is a limited resource and not a source of unlimited power, and it seems it wasn't even meant to be used for magic at all. And since Emperors stopped ascending and becoming one with it, the global pool of mana has been slowly diminishing across the entirety of the Empire. But what is it used for if not for cool spells? To answer that, we need to consult a devlog from November 2019, which is written like a letter from one in-game scholar to another. I cannot confirm with 100% certainty which parts of that lore made it to the game, but it seems like the main plot points remained unchanged. I won't read the entire letter, but here's a quick summary. Outside of the planet itself, there are dark beings of immense power. Before humanity populated the planet, other beings found it and lived on it. Who they are is unclear, but it's said that at some point they attracted the attention of the sleeping Old Ones. During the following war between those beings and the Old Ones, the dying king of that civilization unleashed so much energy that it created Reticulum itself, engulfing the entire planet and, seemingly, stopping the onslaught of eldritch horrors for good. The letter ends with the scholar saying that he has done calculations and believes that the Empire finally tapped too deep into the Reticulum, causing a rupture in it, and once again awakening the sleeping ones. And even though this bit of lore is very old, written a whole 5 years before the game was released, it provides all the missing parts that the story omitted. From what I can tell, Reticulum is a shield, and it was doing its job perfectly, even with humans running around and casting lightning bolts for fun. It wasn't a problem, because a shield that engulfs an entire planet can handle a bunch of casts here and there. And it seems even when early emperors started casting miracles, it was still alright. Because at the end of their life, they all either came back to the spaceship and did what Embla did, or restored the Reticulum with their essence in some other way, to keep the shield up. But at some point, this tradition was forgotten. And the shield became weaker and weaker, until the events of the game happened, where an opening presented itself for the dragon to get in and finally attempt to consume the navigator. You and Embla came at the right time to the right place. 2 insects returning just enough Reticulum for the navigator to wake up, so it could activate the ship and leave for another planet, far from the cosmic horrors hunting it down. The questions that remain unanswered in my evening investigation are: what's going to happen with the planet now that the navigator has left? Will Reticulum persist or will it dissipate entirely? Can the rupture in it be mended, or is the entire planet doomed now? Is Navigator one of a kind entity, or are there more of those? I hope the next game explores those questions. What we already have here is an amazing story, letting you experience sci-fi cosmic horrors through the eyes of a mortal who cannot fully grasp the bigger picture. I love those kinds of stories. Thankfully, the devlog already alluded that the team is hard at work on something, so I can't wait to see how the story of Skald continues. Hi everyone who skipped story spoilers. You missed my insane ramblings. Come back when you finish the game. All in all, Skald is a nice little adventure exploring very dark themes of both human insanity and events of a cosmic scale that a simple human like you cannot comprehend. Which is a pretty rare mix to encounter in a fantasy game. Even if you don't care for the fact that it's a love letter to the RPGs of old, I urge you to buy it for the story. It's captivating in its inevitable descent into insanity. Truly a rare game. And it's priced incredibly well. It's only $15 with regular sales, and it has properly set up regional pricing. There's truly no excuse not to play it. And if you made it this far into the video, consider subscribing, it will help me fight eldritch beasts beyond my comprehension. That's it for the video, bye! Wow, you actually made it all the way to the credits? According to my analytics, you are among 10 people total who watch my videos in their entirety. Thank you so much. I have a Patreon, so if you want me to read your name or talk to me on Discord, head over there. Link is somewhere. Special thank you to Losipai, Ernest Gaskin,